In 2012, Art was elected president of the National Border Patrol Council Local 2544 by the membership, which is comprised of over 4,500 members. Art was elected vice president of the National Border Patrol Council in 2013 and is active in the implementation of the overall media strategy. Art is one of the most knowledgeable people in the country on Arizona border politics. He's co-host of the Green Line Radio Show, which is a podcast for Border Patrol agents by Border Patrol agents. As an advisor to President Trump on the challenges our country faces at the border, we are so fortunate to have him with us tonight. He just came back from Washington, D.C. to take time to spend with us. Please join me in welcoming Art Del Cueto.
I thank you guys for having me. It's important because I was born on the border, okay? And I grew up on the border. I've worked on the border. I've been here my entire life. I've lived in Arizona forever, obviously with the exception of when I went to the academy, and I was in Georgia for 4 months, and then I did some time, not that kind of time, but I did some time in North Carolina doing some construction because I thought that was cool. It's not, just so you guys know. It's been a crazy 3 days. I don't know how much I've slept in the last couple of days. And I had to be in D.C. because we were going back and forth over a new collective bargaining agreement that we got for the membership. And there was some issues that we needed to fix with management. And while we were out there, I was out there with Brandon Judd, who's the national president. He gets a message from the White House saying, hey, if you guys are in town, Donald Trump Jr. is having a little get-together. Why don't you guys come over and hang out? So we didn't know exactly what to expect. We went and hung out, and it was his party for the book signing. So that was kind of cool. I was upset that I missed him here in Scottsdale. So I got to see him there in D.C., which was a big deal. And the funniest thing is I hadn't met Ivanka before. So I go up to her to introduce myself because I think she's a big deal. And I go up to introduce myself. I shook her hand, and she laughed, and she tapped me on the shoulder, and she goes, Art, I know who you are. I see you all the time. And I was like, wow, that's kind of cool, So it's just been busy. And then I show up. I got in late to Tucson last night on the plane. And as soon as I landed, I get down. And as soon as I get home, my phone starts ringing off the hook because one of the agents that I represent was involved in a shooting down in Ajo by Lukeville, a Russian illegal alien trying to enter the country. Of course, the newspaper said it was a Russian immigrant. No. It was a Russian illegal alien that was trying to get into the country. And it's something that we deal with each and every day in that area. Like I said, I've been doing this close to 17 years now. I still actively work the field. That's what there's a little misconception sometimes that goes on because I do this. People don't understand that I still work the field. I still go out there, I put on the uniform, and I go out there and do what needs to be done out on the Tohono O'odham reservation. So I actually still am very active out there, working a bunch of, the smuggling interdiction and everything else you can think of, because it is still pretty bad. Now, added to how bad it is within Arizona is obviously the Tohono O'odham reservation. A lot of people think that I'm attacking it. I'm not attacking it, but it is a serious problem that we have to deal with every day. You're looking at over 60 linear miles with Mexico that virtually has no fence whatsoever. And I did a small video with Charlie Kirk of Turning Point. I took him out there so he can see it. There's areas where it's just one barbed wire strand, and there's other areas where it's just a metal bar that is literally a foot off the ground. That's the divider. And then where you see the rivers come, they remove those dividers in order for the water to flow correctly, and it takes a while for us to put those dividers back up, and that's when they take advantage. Recently, there was a lot of tire tracks in that area, which leads us to believe that there was vehicles just driving through there into the United States. Now, what is frustrating is if you look at those numbers of what's coming into the country illegally through there, and you just Don't put it just into the perspective of illegal aliens, but put it in the perspective of drugs that are entering the country. Tucson Sector alone, okay, is responsible for close to 40% of all the drugs that are seized in the entire country. And that's when you're putting up police departments like New York, Detroit, LAPD. 40% of all the drugs are coming through our border, here specifically in Arizona. That's why it shocks me when I see politicians talking about open borders. It shocks me when they say, hey, we're trying to be more humane. Well, I understand that. I understand the humanitarian aspect. And just to be clear, I am 100% pro-immigration. And I think every single person in this room is also, outside, is pro-immigration. What I'm not is pro-illegal immigration. And that's the big word that a lot of the media refuses to use, is that illegal in front of the immigration. No one's against immigration. We're against illegal immigration. And people they need to start making that distinction. And I troll, as they say. I troll a lot of people on Facebook and Instagram when I see them say, oh, immigration. And I'm like, hey, you forgot to spell illegal in front of it, Just so you know, I have a fun time. Thank you. I have a fun time doing that, even more so in Tucson, because Tucson's, what can I say? A little more, what's the word I'm looking for? There you go. A little, no, I don't want to attack them because it's my home, it's where I live, right? They're a little less deplorable than the rest of us. Okay, let's put it that way. Tucson's a little less deplorable. And their news media is so one-sided. It is insane how one-sided it is. And, well, it did fail, but I will tell you there's a reason it failed, and it's not because they're against it. It's because they're smart enough to know that if it would have passed, they wouldn't get federal funding. They don't care about it. They want the federal funding. And I know the mayor came out and publicly said that she is going to find ways to make it pass while not losing federal funding. So we know that is their ultimate goal, is the money. That's what it comes down to. And it's kind of sad because I live in an area where I pay Tucson taxes. I even have to pay taxes on my home, but I'm not allowed to vote because of the area that I'm annexed out in, which doesn't make any sense that I'm giving them my money, but I can't vote in their elections. It is what it is at this point. But it hasn't stopped. The flow of drugs, the flow of illegal aliens, it just has not stopped. And that's where every single individual here is so important. We all need to make a decision on, do we want to lose this state? I need you guys to really be aware. Listen, there's all kinds of back and forth a lot of times during the primary elections. At the end of the day, if your primary candidate didn't win, you need to get behind the one that did. That's what hurts us, and that's what's hurt us a lot of times. I firmly believe we could have ended up with 2 senators instead of just 1, or half of 1, or 1. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, we got it, because I'll tell you what, it's going to be rough. It's not going to be easy. We know it's not going to be easy, because just like a lot of individuals were hitting the polls because they liked President Trump's message, I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of individuals that are going to be hitting it because they're upset. And that is something that we need to be able to offset. There's no one out here, I guarantee you, I don't care how big of a Trump supporter you are or you think you are, none of you here need President Trump to win more than I do. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I've been on the news. Because I've been attacking the policies. Because I've been attacking a lot of individuals. And there are a lot of them embedded in my agency. And the minute he doesn't win, I have the biggest target on my back. And I know that. And I realize that. And that's why it's so important to me. And we see it all the time, you know. There's a lot of back and forth within our own agency. There's a lot of individuals within our agency that are still there. Thank goodness some of them are leaving now. And I know whoever gets a hold of this is going to say, Art, I can't believe you said that, but I'm going to go ahead and get in trouble anyway. So I might as well say it. I'm pretty glad that Commissioner McElhenney is gone, to be honest. You know, I don't think he did the agents any favors. I don't think he did anyone any favors. He's someone that was appointed by the Obama administration, and he'd been there this entire time. He is kind of the reason we had catch and release, which is horrible. One of the other policies that were there under him, which I think we're still suffering because of it, is if the police department would pull over an illegal alien and they had no priors, what they would do is they would call Border Patrol, they would check their record, and then we would just release them back into the country. We wouldn't do anything else about it. We wouldn't register their name, we wouldn't register where they were going, we didn't know anything about it. So basically, we'd find them in the shadows, and we'd put them back in the shadows. That's what was going on. And that is something that we've had to deal with still to this day. I want to talk to you guys a little bit of why sanctuary cities are so dangerous. And I know you guys sometimes don't have to deal with it, but I want you guys to understand that way when you have somebody that's pro-sanctuary cities, you need to have all the tools in your bag so you can argue their reasoning. And that's what I want to give you. The way sanctuary cities works is if you have an illegal alien that commits a crime in some other state, and then he comes to Arizona, and he gets pulled over by local law enforcement, and local law enforcement cannot determine whether this individual is legally or illegally in the country, he would call Border Patrol or ICE so they can come make that determination. If they make the determination that he's here illegally, what happens is Border Patrol now arrests that individual, detains him, puts him on deportation proceedings, and removes them from the country. Under sanctuary city, that law enforcement officer cannot call immigration. So they just release him back into the country. That's the reality of it. Now, what happens is if somebody has a warrant from another state, the local law enforcement will call that other state. They will ask them if they're willing to extradite this individual. Many times they're not willing to extradite it because they don't have the money and they don't have the resources to come all the way out here and take him. So when that other state says, no, we cannot extradite him, he gets to be released in the country. That's where the problem is. And I'll tell you why it's a problem, because you guys heard of the child separation. So there's a time where you can't separate them. They got to stay together. You got to release them together. The smugglers know how it works. They know that the Flores ruling states that you cannot hold a child longer than 20 days. So what do you think every illegal alien is doing when they're crossing the border? They're bringing a child. Now, I know some of these kids are going for as much as 300 to 350 is what they're renting out kids so they can cross the border. Not only should that child be separated from the person that's bringing him, we should find out who is renting that child, and that person should be prosecuted too. So we've gotten, at times, individuals that have serious crimes that they've committed in another state. Us ourselves, okay? But they're here with a child. So what happens is we are stuck in a position where we now need to call that other state and find out if they're willing to come pick him up for his crime. If the other state says no, because this individual has crossed into the United States illegally with a child, I could only hold them 20 days. And I got to release him into the United States also. That's the reality of what's going on. That's the stuff that a lot of people don't tell you. That's the stuff that you see, you know, the people with the gimmicks on TV saying, oh, yeah, we're against this. We want the wall. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but give me all the facts, man, because at the end of the day, when we're there arguing, or you guys are arguing with, you know, your left-leaning friends, They're saying, well, why do you need the wall? Why do you need the wall? And they're going to give you, if you build a 20-foot wall, they'll bring a 21-foot ladder. Yeah, I've heard all that before. What I always ask these people, and I don't care if you're leaning to the right or leaning to the left. Everyone goes to Walmart. You all may not get pictures of yourselves in Walmart, but you all go to Walmart. Don't be lying to me. You've all been there. And if you ask right leaning or left leaning, you're going to get the same answer from this question. When you get out of that car and you go inside, do you lock your car? Do you lock your car doors? When you left your home today, did you lock your home? Why'd you lock it? Somebody could still break in. So why'd you do it? Right? Exactly. And that's what you can tell your left-leaning friends. Because at the end of the day, you don't wave a white flag. You don't just give up. I get asked that question all the time because of me working on the reservation. For the longest time, I would apprehend illegal aliens coming into the country, and if they had less than 400 pounds, I had to release them. Because the Attorney General would not prosecute anyone under 400 pounds. In dope, not in weight, just so you guys. Let me clarify that one. Because I saw some confused faces out there like, what? So if you're a big person, you don't get deported? No, it's if you're carrying less than 400 pounds. But that's a problem, you know, and I would see it all the time. And I remember when I first entered the patrol, there was a chief there, and he had an all-hands meeting, and he wanted to talk to everyone. And somebody right away said, anyone got questions? And he raised his hand. He said, I got a question. I said, what's your question? And they said, how come if we arrest individuals with less than 400 pounds, we don't detain them, we let them go? And the chief looked at everyone, he says, that's not happening. And he looked around, he says, somebody raise your hand if they're aware of that happening. The entire room of 450 agents raised their hand. He turned around and looked at his deputy, and he said, that stops now. That will never happen again. And if any of you guys have to deal with that, you call me directly and I will make sure that that stops. That was in 2003. It hasn't stopped. And he didn't answer his phone. So, but that's the problem. That's been one of the problems that we face each and every day. And it's just sickening to hear, you know, everything that's going on in the country and these attacks on law enforcement. You know, I've been out there working for the longest time on the reservation, and I seriously believe that, you know, the people on the reservation showing me their middle finger is their way of saying hello to me now. I find that normal now, because that's what they do. You know, I've been followed to my home by people. I take all kinds of different routes in order to get home sometimes. But then you take the endorsement of President Trump. Never in my wildest dreams, living in Phoenix, because I lived in Phoenix for a while, playing in a heavy metal rock and roll band, did I think
Does that mean you had long
this?
hair?
I had hair, first of all. Forget the length. Forget the length, Kelly. Let's talk about I had some hair. And did I think I was going to be where I'm at or do what I'm doing? Never when we did the endorsement did I think we'd be here. The endorsement was originally started by Hector Garza of Laredo Sector. And then President Trump came to Arizona and he reached out to us. And, you know, I didn't endorse, and I've said this before, I had talked to Brandon Judd, who is essentially my boss. And he said, well, we can't do endorsements, can't do any endorsements. We got to wait. It's the primaries. We have to have meetings. And I said, okay, because I got to respect the boss. So my local being the largest in the country, I didn't want the membership not to know what happened, but I didn't want to defy the president, my boss at the time, which is still Brandon Judd. So what I did is I wrote a little email, and I said, it's been a long-standing practice by this local not to endorse anyone in primaries. However, if I could endorse someone, let me tell you guys about Donald Trump. And I went on about my experience with Donald Trump. I wasn't endorsing anyone. I was just saying if I could, this is who I would. I was sharing my knowledge. And all of a sudden, every single media you can think of in the country started calling. And Brandon Judd calls me and he says, what did you do? And I said, nothing. I followed your orders. You said don't endorse, and I didn't endorse. I just said if I could endorse, this is who I would endorse. But I didn't endorse anyone. It's too late by then. So from there on, it just took off. Thankfully, I believed that he would win. I know a lot of people were going back and forth and said, maybe he doesn't, maybe he does. And then we get invited to New York City on the night of the election. That was an eye-opener. So it's just been an exciting time ever since then. And I understand some people don't. And some people will say, well, why isn't this built? And why isn't this done? And why isn't that done? Well, do you want a dictator or not? That's what it comes down to. If he could dictate, everything would get done. But we have a group of individuals in Congress that are on their own agenda sometimes. And that's where the problem, I think, is. And that is where we come in. We focus so much on a presidential candidate, which is great. Don't forget, it's great. Remember me. I'll be in a lot of trouble if he doesn't win. But congressional seats are huge, guys. They're just humongous. Yeah, and you know what? This is what's going to happen. I'm telling you right now. There is so many ignorant people out there that are upset of President Trump. They're upset. And they're going to go vote. And they're just going to go D all the way down the road. They don't even know what they're voting for. They're just voting against him, so let's vote against every single one else. And we need to offset that. Did I just endorse a certain line of? No, I didn't, right? No. If I could, though, I would tell you, go R all the way down the middle. But I can't do that, so I won't. Thank you.